Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Walaikum salam ji.
Just say yes so that I could know. Okay, everybody's
Yes.
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All right. Uh, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Bashir Khan, Deputy Manager Career Services, Fast NU Lahore campus. As part of our webinar series today, today is the fourth one in this regard. Before any further ado, let me introduce to you our distinguished guest for today's session. He's Mr. Khurram Shahnawaz Rana, Director Human Resource I2C. Currently, he's serving as a Director of Human Resource. So, over to you, sir. You may start now.
All right, Ji. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I hope as we proceed, we'll get more people adding on to this.
Yes, sir.
We'll start off with a little bit about I2C, who we are, what we do, and then we'll move on to topic concerning new generation, the new graduates from FAST who are going out into the market, into this, as one would say, the brave new world, and we'll talk about that. So, is the presentation live for everybody right now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Alright.
It's ready. You may proceed, sir.
All right. Do I screen share or are you sharing the screen?
Sir, I'm in fact sharing the screen, so you can, let me know when to turn to the next slide.
All right, wonderful. So what we'll be discussing later on today in just a couple of minutes would be managing through this new pandemic, COVID-19, and some guidance for students in thriving in this new environment. Next slide. This is a very interesting thing to look at about I2C. We are building the future of payments. There's no other company like I2C in Pakistan. We support the financial services industry. That's why you'll hear a lot of times the word fintech with I2C, which refers to financial technology. We predict, and it's not just us, it's actually McKinsey's latest global payment world map, which suggests that the market will be predicted at $2 trillion by 2020. And right now, looking at the latest changes in trend with the coronavirus and the kind of changes it has had in the market, this number is going to go considerably up. Next slide. Further, I2C operates on a global scale. We have the most sophisticated technology infrastructure in Pakistan. We are the only SaaS company in Pakistan. If you're all computer science graduates, I may not have to go into detail about SaaS, but just briefly, SaaS means software as a service, and that's what we do. And if there are any questions by anybody, we can always take them later on in the course of this presentation. At I2C, we do 11,000 or more than 11,000 transactions per minute. More than 20 billion US dollars are processed annually, and we have client support available in 24 time zones. All throughout the year, may it be rain, hail, storm, or pandemic, anything, we are live and we're running. Next slide, please. We work with the world's largest financial institutes and brands. This small screen will give you a brief idea of some of the clients that we work with. If you note a couple of the ones which are famous and very, very well known to the common consumer, brands like Visa, MasterCard, Western Union, if I look at it, the ones which you as a consumer would have not heard about as much might be something like Petal or MetaBank. But if, for example, if you are a freelancer, you've definitely heard about Payoneer. There's also one of our clients. Next slide, please. As you can see, one platform and with a global reach. We serve cardholders in 216 countries. Our headquarters is in the Silicon Valley, US. We have operations center in Montreal, Omaha, data centers in California, Virginia, Shanghai, and offices in Lahore, Dubai, London, Sydney, and Singapore. Next slide, please. What are our values? if you look closely at this, our mission is to create better digital banking and payment experience for consumers and businesses around the world. But what are our core values? We begin with integrity. There's absolutely no compromise on integrity with I2C. We strive at all times for excellence. We work on a model of innovation and collaboration. We believe in giving back to the community, and we are always a global company. Next slide. Our people are our biggest assets, and we don't just say it, we mean it. This small slide will give you an idea of the various benefits that we offer our employees. I mean, if you look at the left side of the screen, you'd see we have an on-premises gym facility, and this is just for Lahore. Obviously, that's what I'm targeting at right now, trying to explain that. We have a daycare for kids. So if you have any children or if you are a senior who's joining and has kids, this is a great facility. And it's had wonderful feedback from the market and from people joining in. We have a wonderful vehicle lease facility. Needless to say, more than 80% of the employees right now are availing this. We have wonderful group life insurance, medical, inpatient, outpatient. We have a very unique revenue sharing model in which company benefits and you benefit as an employee. Plus your own performance gets you a monthly reward. So there are various incentives coming on into the salary. So we try to keep a market competitive salary, and then we add on these benefits on top of that. So you'll see on the right-hand side, a lot of these things, and they might be mentioned very small and tiny here, but these are, state of the art and by far the best that you can find in the market. Next slide, please. Right now, we have 232 global open vacancies. Out of them, 122 are in Pakistan. As of today, out of these 122, we have 50 people waiting to join, and the others are right now in process of being hired. So we are always looking for talented resources, and we're always looking for great people. So at any given time, if you are talented, if you are a problem solver, and if you are somebody who admires challenges and wishes to take them on to find solutions, we've got open vacancies. Even if the numbers don't show them right here, but we do. As you can see on the left-hand side, it shows the chart from 2016, but honestly, every single year for the past 18 years, we've had straight upward growth. And we've had no layoffs in the company's histories. The only people that we've ever let go are people that have not performed. We give ample of chances. We have performance improvement plans, counseling, coaching, training department. So we go through all the measures to get people up to speed. We try to find out if there's an issue, but attitude is most important. And if a person does not have an attitude to learn, does not have an attitude to achieve, to grow, then really there are very limited options. So this is who we are. Next slide, please. This slide will give you an idea of the positions in specific that we have open right now. My team would be glad to share these separately with your placement department, so you can have an idea. Plus, you can visit our careers portal at careers.i2cinc.com. All our latest positions are updated over there. You can apply and you'll definitely get a call back. Next slide, please. So we're an HR in financial technology. We do employ the best practices. Just to give you an idea, and this is what I think is a great time to talk about the current environment and how we fit into it. So I'm going to skip to the next slide so as to merge this. So if you could kindly go to the next slide. Now this talks about work culture transformation due to COVID-19. This is where, interestingly, all of this merges into show the HR, the connectivity, and you as the future of this industry in this country. The coronavirus pandemic has spread through the world. As of today, it's got more than 3 million people who have been infected. We have, I think, close to 300,000 deaths by now, if I'm not wrong. When you look at this, these are staggering numbers. And the worst part of all of this is that we don't have a cure yet. But on the other hand, we all, as perhaps human beings, are a very resilient species. The moment it started, there was some hue and cry. There have been certain changes in market, but naturally, there's always a time when an equilibrium is reached. So right now, where there might be manufacturing concerns, or there might be transporters who might be shutting down or laying off or reducing their size, there are other companies which are building upon this and changing their work model and working towards hiring people, providing jobs, and working towards the future. With I2C, we had never worked from home in the past. We were a brick and mortar company who would work in the office. When we heard that this was coming and this was something which had reached Pakistan and times were changing, this is what we did. We immediately started consulting. We set up our management committee meeting every morning, which talked to each other, HR, IT operations, uh, engineering, development, call center, customer service, quality, artificial intelligence, training and development. Everybody was on board, all hands on deck. And first thing was, number one, how do we ensure that everybody that we have today will remain on the job? And the answer was very simple. Our business model was different. Our business model caters to the financial industry. While people were grief stricken with this pandemic, they also needed to spend money in order to purchase the items for daily necessity. Now, what was happening at that point in time? When you need to buy items, again, there was news coming in about banknotes being the possible cause of infection. So, what did we do there? We have plastic, we have online medium, we have online payment facilities, and we already have a very robust infrastructure in place. So, our clients started giving us more business. And on top of that, we started getting more new clients who were pursuing this because this is what we call the new normal. Now that we're already a couple of months into the pandemic, now, for example, in Pakistan's context, we are hiring, we are expanding. And at the same time, the working model is changing. As of today, about 85% of I2C is working from home. As you can see, I'm working from home as well. But besides myself, my team, finance, accounts, engineering, IT ops, the only people in the office, around 15%, are those who are essentially required in the office. We've taken state-of-the-art measures, WHO guidelines to ensure the kind of measures that are taken to ensure there's no transmission of this disease in the office. However, interestingly, there are a lot of other companies, IT companies, that have not gone through these kind of measures, and they've had these infected people who had unfortunately come into the office and now they're being shut down. So keeping that in mind, this is the new normal globally. So now we're working with that. Now, how does this work for everybody? As you can see, we're working from home. Now, what does that mean for everybody? I'm going to go to the next slide to show you a little bit, so it has a little more physical effect by looking at it even in this virtual environment. So kindly, next slide. Maintaining team culture. This is what we started doing. So we already had MS Teams. We started using WhatsApp, Zoom. As you can see, we started having feedback sessions online. You'll see this little screenshot on the middle of the screen almost. We're promoting work from home. We have around 85% as of today workforce which is working from home. Then we do sessions to address things like anxiety and fear in employees. We do sessions and email rollouts and virtual sessions where we talk about how to work from home. I know this is very interesting. Just like maybe you might be the first batch which is coming out of fast, which is coming out in this pandemic. Things are going to be a little different for you. And how so? People before you who graduated went in for interviews and tests to physical offices. They got to meet people, they gave a test, paper, computer, they spoke to people face to face, they came out, they could observe physical gestures, they could see people, they knew how to dress up, so on, so on. And there's a lot of guideline on that. When you're at home and you're called in for an interview, all right, let's meet up on Skype or WhatsApp or Microsoft Teams. and XYZ is going to interview you today. It's a totally different ballgame. This is something that you need to be prepared for. Now, what are the things that you can possibly do if we quickly go through that? Ensure that you have a good working internet connection. Ensure that your laptop or your mobile is working. Get a good angle. From what I understand and from what I've been going through for the past month and so, is that keeping an arm's space, for example, from the laptop or the camera is a good distance and gives you better, kind of a visual effect. At the same time, you should test your audio equipment. Be prepared. You might want to have a notebook or a pen handy in case any question is asked, or in case you would like to discuss a point after you finish talking about something right now. Since you're at home and you're working through a camera, it could be good to have that. I mean, I've got something like this right here. So that helps you. Always be prepared, be fresh. Working from home or doing anything from home in terms of an interview or a discussion does not mean that you really need to just get up and sit in front of a computer or mobile. Try to do what you would normally do. Freshen up yourself, wear something decent that you would, then sit in front. It mentally sets you up for that environment so you can take up these things. So having said that, these things are going to be different. Would you believe that in the recent month, we've had people join in who have not come to our office even once? We've sent letters to people through online emails. We've had people sign and send them back virtual signatures. We've had people join in from their home using their own PC for training. And then we've had equipment delivered to their home where they sanitized it, started using it, and looking at all of that. So things have really changed. People have joined in from Karachi who were supposed to come to Lahore but with no transport can't, and they've joined in online and they're working, they're being trained. And we're also further developing our capacity to do that. So all of these things are there, and this is what is changing right now. So next, if you go to the next slide, kindly, you'll see what we're doing during this pandemic as a company. So the landscape has changed. Hiring has changed. So one, we felt that there was a need to tell people that while there are a lot of companies which are laying off people during this pandemic, we are hiring. And we are hiring talent. And if you have talent, if you think you're capable, should definitely come and give it a try. We had virtual assessments and interviews. We've onboarded people, as I just said, on premises as well as remote. See, with on premises, in a conference room, which normally fits about 20 people, would only call in 3 or 4 people, social distancing. If I were to give you an idea of how our office is right now, the moment you enter, there's a walk-through disinfection booth. Then there's sanitizers. Then there's thermal temperature checking. Then you'd come in, then there are disinfections that are going on every workstation in a matter of every half an hour. And then obviously every time somebody gets up from workstation, it's disinfected regardless of how long the person sits and then leaves. So all these measures collectively help us keep our environment very, very safe for our employees. If you can kindly go to the next slide now. I2C believes in giving back to the society. So we have numerous initiatives that are done by I2C employees and the I2C Foundation. So we already have a clinic in place that helps the more underdeveloped areas of Lahore and caters free of cost to individuals within villages. Besides that, there are employee initiatives. During this pandemic, we have employees who have put together money and who have sent out giving essentials, day-to-day rations, food items, masks, sanitizers to people who are not very affording, especially people who work daily wages, people who were working and now suddenly because of this virus do not have any livelihood. And this was done not only by the I2C Foundation works, but also by employees as CSR initiatives on an individual basis and with collective effort from the company. So how that model works is that whatever contribution that employees make towards this fund for CSR, the company makes an equivalent fund to further assist them on these charitable and great relief initiatives. Next slide, please. Now, this is what will give you an idea about Oh yes, here you go. Right here at the bottom right, this is the disinfection booth that we've got now. And these are some of the emails that we keep sending out on a daily basis. We send out posts to motivate people, to give them an idea of what's going on. And again, Open Door has come into an open virtual access. So people are told again and again that they have access to the HR department at all times. They can reach us by WhatsApp, by Teams, by email, by phone call. So we're just a message away. So, those things are changing, but definitely we are keeping up with times. Next, reorganization of work and what will be the new normal like. First of all, I thought I'd tell you something. What is thriving? Thriving, some would say, is resilience. And what is resilience? Resilience is the ability to stand back up. It's like the whole lemon and lemonade story we've probably heard many times. Things happen in life. Nobody thought this pandemic would happen. I mean, I've seen a lot of these underworld movies and zombie world apocalypse movies and all, but definitely not planned for this. But really, we need to be prepared for anything. That's how the world goes on. And that's how in the show business, when stage shows used to happen, they used to say the show must go on. And that's what it is. If companies start shutting down, how are people going to earn? That's how the world economy works, right? The whole life cycle of people revolves around the fact that you start studying, you learn a skill, you do a degree. There are certain jobs, there are companies that work and provide that kind of job. A person works there, makes a livelihood, and then again, the whole butterfly effect with the economy, where different things are getting financed, different things are getting, start working, the ripple effect, and so on, and the economy works. But if something in there stops, like what happened with the pandemic, suddenly people can't get out. People can't meet each other. I mean, I know I used to hang out once a week at this stage, obviously, with kids and family, mashallah. So I used to hang out with my friends once a week, would go out, have lunch or dinner, or sit at a park, walk around, enjoy some time together. But ever since this pandemic has come in, I'm at home. The only time I go out is with a mask and to do the essential shopping from probably Metro or Hyperstar, and nothing else. When I talk to people, again, people are only going out for essentials. So things have really started to change, and the job market is changing. So if you don't keep up pace with it, and a couple of things that I've already mentioned in terms of how you prepare yourself for online things, and one thing which is very important, which I think has been a historical issue with a lot of graduating batches, well, not just fast, but overall, has been how one sends their resume to a recruiter. So you already have a wonderful placement department, so that's a blessing for you. But in addition to that, when you do send a CV, please make sure that you try to make it a little unique. Have a little email message that you send if you're emailing it, for example. Attach a CV, write a little note, mention the particular job that you saw on the career portal or advertise somewhere, saying that, I saw this job and I think that I'm suitable because this. And, I would appreciate if you get back to me, or I'm looking forward to this challenge and, get back to me, and so on. When you apply online through a career portal, there's usually some place where you can write whatever you want, write it. The job objective is now old. So if you have a CV template which has this job or mission objective at the top, you don't really need that. You can keep it short and sweet on exactly what you've done, keep it in terms of the skills you have, the certifications you've done, the kind of projects you've done. Next thing, the kind of job that you're applying at, if you keep the projects that you've done that are more relevant to those jobs in a more limelight fashion or more towards the top, it always helps. If you've got a section which says projects and you're applying for, let's say, a job which is more specific to, let's say, AI. So if you've done any projects during your studies which relate to AI, big data, data warehousing, or that kind of thing, mention them on the top and put others below them. So the moment the recruiter is looking at it, the first thing he sees is that impression, oh, he's worked in this, relevant, okay, let us check him out. Next, with the whole virtual thing, this is new for a lot of us. And We're expanding our capability to interview more and more people online. So things are changing. And while they are right now, this is an opportunity for people to stand out. Those who get acclimatized to this right now, from day one, from the beginning, have better chances of surviving in this market compared to people who are late learners. So that's going to be there. Next about thriving is prospering. How do we prosper in this environment? Well, this is how things are. Once upon a time, you might have heard it in a lot of uh, dramas. I did on a couple of recent movies that I watched sitting at home. Uh, Once upon a time, in the olden time, when people used to chart out maps, the area that they didn't know about, they would draw lines and then they would put dragons on the other side. And the words in Latin that would be there, if I'm not wrong, would be that beyond this point is danger, or beyond this point lie dragons, and so on. The unknown. But one thing that history has taught all of us is that the only thing which is constant is change. And change is inevitable. And when change is inevitable, it can have different forms and shapes, and it could be in a variety of patterns. So this pandemic is just one of those changes. We have adjusted a lot. We all have adjusted a lot. And I'm sure we will adjust further and will accept it. And if we do not accept it, there's really not much of a future for any of us. So that's where we are. If we can go to the next slide now, please. A little idea about what it takes to be a part of I2C. We love to have leaders, not followers. We really want people who enjoy what they do, take pride in their work, focus on a long-term career growth and not short-term benefits, committed, and beyond everything, integrity, people with integrity. And if we can skim to the next slide, please. This is just a brief idea about how our process works. People can apply online, which is the simplest way. Go to careers.i2cinc.com. There's an initial technical test, interviews, technical interviews, and then a final interview. And the last slide, which says a thank you from me to all of you. And now I'm open to questions from the students.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, absolutely.
Assalamu, sir. How are you?
Walaikum salam ji, Allah ka shukar. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm actually a BBA student. So as you were giving your presentation, I checked out the career portal on your website because when you showed that slide of available positions, it showed positions as data analyst and some business intelligence positions, which I'm interested in. However, I couldn't see that on the career portal. Is the career portal updated, or like is that a slide that that's like the latest positions available?
Now, the career portal has the latest positions. However, since this new term of events with the coronavirus, we are increasing our positions. So there might be some positions which are diffused into other active positions, but they'll come out as separate, unique positions very shortly. So, I mean, you could just send in your resume with the interest that you have to our email ID, which shows on the last slide, careers@i2cinc.com, and they would address it. Anyhow, but within this week, I think tomorrow is off, so probably by Monday we should have these other positions updated as well.
And specifically referring to data analyst, what are the essential skills that you look for in a data analyst? I mean, I assume probably advanced Excel, some Python, some SQL, I suppose.
You suppose absolutely correctly, yes. Those are some of the basic things that we look at. So for data analysts, these are required. Our focus for data analyst is somebody who is definitely technical with these skills, but also somebody who has an orientation towards problem solving. So a person with a knack for looking at these things, trying to find solutions, or as one would say, try to identify patterns. And again, we focus a lot on skills plus intelligence. So that's a focus of the interviewers. Now, there's also a difference between when we're looking at somebody who's fresh versus somebody who's experienced. So if somebody is experienced, then obviously we could ask a lot of questions which are pertaining to directly work and try to gauge that. But for a fresh person, it's usually about couple of these things that you just mentioned, plus in fact about the person's overall intelligence, how a person approaches problems, his problem solving behavior, thinking pattern. And that's basically the foundation on how we assess for fresh people.
Right. And lastly, positions in for data analyst and business intelligence, are
Yeah.
these specifically for CS students or business students who have a skill set eligible? Are they also qualified for them?
See, for business analysis, definitely non-IT people can also apply. I think right now it's not just about the fact that one can be a CS or a non-CS graduate, but more about the fact that who's more fit. So we get people who are CS graduates, but once we interview them, we see that they're much more than just CS graduates. So they're not just technical people, but they also have a lot of worldly skill. They're very comfortable talking. They have a very good way of presenting. Their approach to how they look at information is very advanced. So it's not just the degree that we focus on. So what I would always suggest to all of you as graduates is to apply for anything that you think you have an interest in. Apply for it. Even if you think that you read the requirement, you're like, I'm not 100% applicable as per this requirement, but this seems very interesting to me and I have a natural interest for this. I've done some project which might be relevant. I've done some work in the past or read up things which have sparked an interest. Apply for it. Then the next step would be where an interviewer would gauge you. If you get to that stage, you could learn a lot from that interview itself on how closely aligned with your interest that thing is. So it might not work with, let's say, one interview or one company, but on a more long-term approach, it'll work out better for you.
Right. And just to follow up, as you were talking about the interview process, I mean, specifically for fresh graduates, is there any tests or is it like, what's the exact process? It's interview and then selection afterwards?
See, earlier when we were doing brick and mortar, we used to have an IQ test, computer-based, but at our workstations in the office. Right now, we're developing an online portal to administer the test, keeping in mind all the fail-safes to ensure there's least margin of anybody, let's say, looking for answers online. So until then, right now the process is more based upon interviews. So we start off with a communication essay, again online based. So the essay plus essay is invigilated online live, right? And then followed by a technical interview where they would assess technical skills, and that could be different. So there could be a CS interview, there could be a Java-based interview, and so on, right? Or AI-based, big data or database related, as you said, SQL or something like that, kind of a technical interview. There's an HR interview, and then there's a panel interview. Sometimes after the panel interview, there's also one last interview where the head of department or the specific head of that unit would also interview the candidate. So this is how we're doing it now, with more focus on interviews.
Right, I see. Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Any other questions, please?
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir, I have a question that in your company, when you hire people like for financial analysis or as a financial analyst, what do you look in them? Like a bachelor's degree, an MBA degree, or some skills like Salesforce, SAP, or some GPA, or what are other sort of particular things that you might think a candidate can have and give an edge to him?
Well, what you mentioned tells me that you're a pretty good candidate. See, the point is, edge is what makes you different or stand out from other people. So when we're looking for somebody like, let's say, for a financial analyst, the first thing is that would probably write something like PBA finance, MBA finance, ACCA, very, very generic kind of a thing. All right, could be any of these. Go ahead and apply. But then we get like 500, 600, 700 applications for this one particular job or one opening. Out of all of those, the first step is filtering out CVs. So the basic thing would be, all right, BBA, MBA, ACCA, fine. But then people who stand out are, for example, when you said Salesforce, or people who at this age who are fresh graduates and they mention things like QuickBooks. Oh, you know what? I have 6 months experience working in QuickBooks. I have 6 months working on this module of SAP. I've worked on Salesforce Online, or I've developed XYZ module related to this, which was, a lot of information sharing from this end. This gives you an edge over other people. When you are fresh, you really honestly don't have any experience. And very frankly, though all the basics are given by universities and you're taught that, the corporate market, the actual job is very different. Every company will probably train you in some time, maybe 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. They're going to train you to be somebody who has a market worth in terms of the knowledge that you've acquired. So that gets refined and polished. It takes like 2, 3, 4 years after you graduate and join the job market to really bring out that professional person from inside you. So that transition from an academic unit to a corporate unit or a professional unit, it takes time. So when a fresh person mentions these things and he says that he has or she has experience on these things, they stand out. So it is never harmful to have extra experience, which is going to add on. Now, one might ask, what kind of extra experience? So it really depends. I mean, let's say if you have worked on Salesforce, it might not be relevant to, let's say, you were coming in, let's say, well, it would be relevant to accounts, it might be relevant to finance, to some extent, it might be relevant to HR. If you had worked on certain modules considering workforce planning within Salesforce, but then it might not be very something that sparks an interest for the quality team, for instance. So, or maybe even with admin for that matter. So whatever field that you think that you want to go into, when you're doing your bachelor's degree, your career choices should be very broad. It's when either you get more experienced or you get more and more qualified that those choices sort of boil down to very specific choices that this is what I want to do. So that would take time. So for now, the things that you've mentioned, plus if you do a couple of other things, again, relevant. So they're never a disadvantage.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. You have thought that you are using actually big data in your company. So what you do, like I think you might have, and you do have a lot of transactional data, like from the customer's transaction, the financial transaction. What do you do for the transactional privacy, data privacy that you actually have for the customers?
All right, that's a great question. And honestly, I've sat through a lot of presentations and I've sat through a lot of business models where I've seen the kind of security levels that we have. So one, we have an extremely safe network and database. We have multiple data centers, very secure data centers. And one of the reasons for that is not only because we take a lot of pride in that, it is also because of the fact that we've heavily invested in these things, hardware and software. Besides this, we're also compliant with the industry requirements. There's something called PCI, which is the Payment Card Industry Compliance Requirements, and we're fully compliant with that. And it's not easy to be in compliance with this requirement. The reason for that is that it's financial data, it's data from governments, it's data from banks, and these institutes themselves are very, very conscious about their data being handled by other places. So our systems are extremely secure, which would bring me back to the point when I said that we work only from the office, and now when we started working from home. So again, the main concern that we had was safety of our data, which was the thing that we had to work with. So that's as far as the security is concerned. Now talk about the kind of data that we handle. From very simple things like a customer taking a client's card to a point of sale point where they use it on a machine and the transaction happens, that comes into our service. Online transactions, that comes into our service. Then there's a lot of debit business that we have. There's a lot of business that we do with governments, such as, let's say, in the Gulf side, there are governments that have got something similar to what we use here called Benazir income cards. They've got something similar where the governments there have issued their citizens sort of like welfare cards, and they would get payments routinely from the government and so on, just like, let's say, social security cards in the US, which again, we're managing. Now, all of this is a huge number of transactions. And as I said in the beginning, just do the maths. We do more than 10,000 transactions per minute, every day throughout the year, non-stop. And you know what's interesting, which speaks a lot about our infrastructure and what we have? In the past 14 years, we have had zero downtime. There is no other company in Pakistan and maybe very few companies in the world that can boast this. So this should give you an idea of how reliable and how robust our security systems and our database systems are. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir. Sir, actually, I'm an accounting and finance student. I'm doing currently my bachelor's. I'm really concerned about I should be doing some skills like Python, Salesforce, or SAP, or I should be preparing for my MBA for the time being, MBA finance, maybe.
All right. See, it really depends on what your choices are in life. There are people who do a bachelor's degree and then come into the job market for 2 or 3 years and then go back for an MBA. Normally, that's what happens around the world. In Pakistan, there is a trend where a person would do BBA, then MBA, then MPhil, and then probably think about coming into the job market. Even though the complexity of things that you learn in BBA, MBA, and then MPhil is different for each level, in terms of the job that you're going to get, it's not very different. So there's very little, if you were to do the cost-benefit analysis, there's very little difference or marginal difference between the kind of job you would get after having a BBA versus what you would with no work experience and completing an MPhil and coming into the job market. I'm talking about the corporate market. If you were to pursue an MPhil because you want to join the academic, corporate life, and with the academic circle, you'd like to get into research, into teaching, and so on, wonderful. Then that's a completely different career track. But if you're talking about coming into the corporate sector, then maybe working a couple of years after BBA might be a much more better choice compared to going for an MBA and then coming back. So again, this is a personal choice that candidates can make according to their own circumstances. I've witnessed people in my career here in Pakistan who have done bachelors and then come into the job market for a couple of years, 2, 3 years, 4 years. They've saved up money. Then they've applied to the institute of their choice or returned to the alma mater to do a master's degree and then come back in the job market. Now, the added benefit of going back after work experience and bachelor's to an MBA is that when you come out of the MBA, you got that experience before the MBA under your belt. And that adds on value to the MBA that you've done. Plus, the way that you approach work is much different. So while you're studying, you really enjoy what you're studying because now the kind of questions that you ask your professors and your instructors are much more mature and much more interesting for them to answer and for you to ask and learn from. So all of this adds. So, I mean, I may not have answered this question exactly the way you might have desired, but it's more of a personal choice. But that's all I can comment on this from my perspective.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, Ji. Any other questions?
Assalamualaikum, sir. So I have a question. Sir, can you hear me?
Please, yes, Walaikum Salam. Please go ahead.
Sir, I want to ask, after how much time you reply to your applicants? Like, I have given my technical interview in the start of this month, and I've got no response after that.
May I ask your name, please?
Ali Raza.
Ali Raza. And what position did you apply for?
It's associate software engineer.
All right. I think I've got a lot of members from my HR team on this webinar. So Tamina or Tayyiba or Aviza, Imran, Ahmed, if you are listening to this, please make a note and get back to Ali Raza today, preferably. Let him know at least what status it is. Usually, Ali, we try to get back to people as soon as we get their application. So once we receive the application, we let people know that, we've got it and we'll be processing it, which is more like a generic response. A lot of people may or may not find it useful. But then after that, once we're processing the CV and we get in touch with people or we review the CV, there are times when just because of the sheer number of people that we're processing, it might take us a little bit of time to get back to people. But I'm glad you brought it up. Uh, in fact, word of advice to all the people listening right now: if you don't hear back from any HR, there is no issue whatsoever. Just pop in an email to the generic HR email address, which is usually available through all corporate websites. In our case, it's HR at i2cinc.com. Uh, just write your obviously your name is there, but still specify that this is my name. I applied on XYZ date through this medium, whether I applied through email or applied through the career portal, or I sent a CV on LinkedIn or a message on LinkedIn, and I'm waiting to hear back. So what that would do is that would ensure that regardless of whatever amount of work that is piled up, somebody will definitely get back to you within 24 hours. And usually that's an SOP that all good HR departments around the globe follow. So at least
Thank you,
somebody
sir.
will get back to you hopefully by today.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Now, any other questions regarding the pandemic? Any comments that you'd like to share, maybe?
So, what you really do in fraud analysis?
Is that a question?
Yeah, actually, I never touched that area. So, like, in your company, I believe like the customers are actually doing fraud, or like it's some cars are being stolen, and you have to block them or something like that. What's your role in that area, actually?
All right. I think I'll have to start at the very beginning, trying to explain what human resources does. I hope that's the question you're asking, right?
Yeah, maybe.
All right. See, it's not just about I2C. Every company has a business model that they follow. They have a business. So I2C जो है वो financial technology में है. I2C works in the financial technology domain. And yes, in very layman terminology, that's what we do. There are cards being used globally at different places to different means of usage. और इसका जो software है that happens on our servers through our software transactions. But besides that, there are other transactions that happen, which are something I'll give you a very simplistic idea. For example, if you use credit cards or debit cards right now, or if you've seen people around you use them, there's sometimes things that come in the terms of SMSs on your mobiles, which would be like, let's say Ramzan is coming up and be like, if you buy groceries from the store, there's like 20% cash back. Or in terms of, let's say, European market or the US market, when there's Christmas around the corner, there'll be these discounts at particular stores, liquor items, or if they're talking about vehicles, according to an individual's vehicle usage history, there might be suggestions on oil change, promotional items, and so on. Now, we have our own proprietary software that helps companies manage these things, which we call campaigns. So these are like sales and marketing campaigns that are also done through our proprietary software for our clients. A lot of that is done through involvement of AI. So our business includes not only the development of all of this, but also continuous maintenance, also further development, market research, research and development, then ensuring quality, customer service, and not only customer service, but then service of the customers of our customers. So all that levels. So in a very brief and layman nutshell, that's what we do as a business. This आप कह लो कि Toyota makes cars, or Metro is a retail store. So this is what we do on a very broad level. Now, what's the role of HR? HR takes care of the employee life cycle. So we start off with, my daughter has just joined me. I'm on video. If you can say hi. Say hi. Hello. All right. I'm on speech. I'm going to finish and come. Okay. All right. So now. All right. I'm sorry. This happens when you're working from home. That's my youngest daughter, mashallah. All right, I'm sorry. I think I lost track there somewhere. So we were talking about the business, right? So when we talk about HR takes care of the employee life cycle. So we start off number one with as an I2C employer branding. So we brand ourselves I2C as why should people join us. Number two, we maintain relation obviously because of the whole hiring aspect with different institutes. Then we develop sourcing for hiring in terms of fresh people, experienced people, C-level recruitment, and so on. Then getting people on board. So the whole onboarding process itself is a module within HR. And then obviously there's motivation, there's retention, and getting people on board. Then everything that happens from the point a person joins to the point a person leaves for any reason. In terms of benefits administration, leave management, policies, legal requirements, their benefits, any issues that they have, suggestions from them, problems that they might have. So that all of that comes into employee relations. So that's what HR does. And then obviously there's a lot of feedback in terms of salaries, market surveys, trying to keep the compensation of the current employees in line with market, ensuring that we always have proper market intelligence to keep abreast of any trends that are coming up. And I hope that should give you an idea of what HR does and how we fit into, let's say, this particular company.
All right, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Jana. Yes. Any other questions?
Anyone else who has a question?
So why not you ask some questions?
Well, my question might, seem more like just interview questions, but let me ask something different since this has not been brought up by any of the students. How is life for you as students now post quarantine into this new normal? How is life for you?
Well, as far as studies are concerned, life is good with studies. I enjoy more studying at home rather than in university. It saves me a lot of time. I can take my classes from the bed even. But however, the element of like the real classroom, we lack it. And there's kind of a formal environment that we used to have before the quarantine. And rest of the things are good, but still, as we cannot go for out like for refreshments, so this all thing we have to do is like staying at home, rather studying or rather some praying, and nothing else we have to do. Rather, I found the time in between to learn some extra skill, and I'm actually trying to move towards something specific so that I can actually get over this quarantine. So actually, it's staying busy and staying distracted from what's going on around the world.
पिछली वाली जो आईडी उसको
Right,
चेक
that
कर
is
लो
interesting.
जो लास्ट टाइम आई थी उसी आईडी को चेक कर लो
Anyway, thank you for sharing. Anybody else feels that way? I mean, I've heard from people that, in the beginning, they seem to be okay working from home, but somehow after 4 weeks, 5 weeks, they're kind of getting bored. They miss the whole routine which they had at the office, or, I try to extrapolate it to university, which I'm trying to understand from you people. The hanging out with friends, just going out, sitting outside, bench pe baith gaye, cafe mein chale gaye. People are you guys missing that at this stage? Is home life getting a little boring? Is it?
Sir, if I could add on to that, I say that this pandemic is something that's completely unprecedented. I mean, in all of human history, we've definitely had different pandemics like the plague and whatnot. But I mean, this is that one type of pandemic where everyone's just compartmentalized in their homes. We're completely away from our normal routine.
And so yes, it makes the life more boring, like the previous life we had.
And I've seen a lot of stories about how people and they have to do their work as well. I mean, working mothers, for example, they have to manage children at home. That's a completely new challenge. So I'd say that in terms of, this whole concept of social distancing, I mean, it's definitely a new challenge. It's something that's unprecedented, and I'd say that times are definitely uncertain. But the most you could do is just, be optimistic and hope that we can, go through this.
Inshallah, that's true. That's also very interesting. When we talk about social distancing, we talk about staying indoors. One thing that, for example, I've noted recently, I'm also finishing up a couple of articles on this for publication. I'm working on them. I haven't published anything yet, so still working, student. So one interesting thing in that part of research and surveys that I noted was that it's only in the main urbanized portions of, let's say, Pakistan, or for that matter, most of the countries globally, they've managed to keep people indoors or, ensure social distancing. I think about last week, I went off to get my water bottles replaced from Gourmet. And now, as per the government SOPs, they've got these circles 1 meter apart inside by the counter, so everybody would stand there, social distancing. Now, interesting thing I noted was that the circle, which was right in front of the cashier, there were like 5 people standing inside that one circle. There was this like 5 different customers who were supposed to be standing this way. There were 5 people who were fitting themselves into one circle, like छोटे होते हुए ड्रानी कहानियां सुनते थे ना कि वो नमक के सर्कल से बाहर निकलो तो जिन आके पकड़ लेते. So I saw these 5 people in that circle, and I was amazed. And that's not just the only place that I've seen it. So while for a lot of people this is changing, but कई सारे लोगों के लिए routine वैसी ही है. And maybe, I don't know, with the kind of complexities with this virus that are being shared, that could be a cause as well of why it might take time for us to get into control of this virus, because of these sudden new complexities in terms of yes, I would above all say that human species has always been resilient. We've always come out stronger than before through all problems and through even earlier epidemics and pandemics. So this time too, we will come out stronger as a nation and as a species. We will, inshallah, come out stronger. If there are any further comments or questions at this stage, otherwise I think it's 3 p.m. We're done and I have another call that I need to be on.
Thank you, sir, for joining and for sharing the knowledge.
Thank you very much, Ji. It was a pleasure. Thank you for being here and listening, and I hope that you guys were able to pick up some things as well. And you're always welcome to visit our career portal at careers.i2cinc.com. And in case of any queries or questions, you can just email us at hr@i2cinc.com, and we'll be more than happy to get back to you immediately. Thank you very much, guys. Have a wonderful day and stay safe. Stay indoors.
Thank you so very much, Khurram Saab, for taking time out and enlightening us with your thoughts. Thank you to Zareen, Ms. Tahmina, everybody at I2C. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Roshan, are you still there?
Hello.
No. Actually, sir, I want to just connect with some student. I think I will get him. Thank you, sir.